Today we're looking at selection in more detail and a few variations on selection statements. We start off with a variable declaration, which is simply var num equals 3. Now here, just highlighted, I've got some if statements, and the very first one is just a standard if statement, and that says if num is equal to. Now remember, when we're using an if statement, rather than putting a single equal sign, we put the double equal sign. So if num is equal to 1, we're going to trace the words if. Then just below that, we've got else if. If this one is not true, we're going to see whether this one is true. So else if num is equal to 2. And if num is equal to 2, we just trace else if this one is not true, and if that one is not true, then we're going to run this, which is just the else, and we just trace the words else. Now I'm going to run this. I do have more code below, but I'll explain the output in a second. Just having a look at this first statement in the output, it just says else, and we go back to our code. Okay, so we can see that we've got the 3, num is equal to 3 there, so it's not going to match this first condition if num is equal to 1. It's not going to match the next one, which is an else if, because the else if checks whether num is equal to 2, but it is going to match this one else. So, and it's simply going to write else. Okay, so just be aware of these if statements and the variations on them. So you can have just a standard if statement, or you can chain these together, if, else if, and if you wanted to, you could have another else if, and another else if you wanted to. But you can only have one else, okay? You can get rid of that. You can have that, or you could have this as well, okay? So you can have one if, well actually you can have many different ifs chained together. You can have several else ifs, okay? So you could check if the number's equal to 5, etc. So just be aware of how that works, those structures work. And now, coming down a bit further, we've got a switch statement, and we have seen this before. It just says switch num, okay? So basically anything within this switch, within the brackets of the switch statement here, we're checking to see what the value of that is. And we come down to the case, so switch num, we check to see whether num is equal to any of these cases. So is it 1? Is it 2? And if it's not 1 or it's not 2, then it's going to be the default. So the default is similar to our else up here. It's sort of a catch-all in case none of these cases are true. So if it's not 1, it's not 2, then okay, we're just going to say default, trace default. Okay, so it's like a catch-all if this one isn't true and that one isn't true. In the same way that the else here is a catch-all if this statement or this statement is not true. Okay, so when this code ran, we saw default because num set to 3 up above. It's not 1, it's not 2, so we're going to just print out default. Okay, the final thing to look at, well actually second final thing to look at, is these statements here. Okay, so we've got some more if statements, and we've got 2 more else if statements. So rather than just checking for equality, which is what we're doing here, we're saying if num is equal to 1, we've got a few different things here. Now this first one, if num, and then we've got the exclamation mark and equal sign. That exclamation mark equal sign means not equal to. The exclamation means not, basically. Not equal to 3. So if the number is not equal to 3, we're just going to trace out number is not equal to 3. Now, if the number is greater than 3, is the next one. So these symbols, the greater than and less than, they're the same as in maths. They just say the greater than crocodile jaws points towards the larger number. So if number is greater than 3, then we're going to just trace that out. If the number is less than 3, then we trace that out. Okay, but we've set num to 3, so we're not going to get any output. But we change that value now. Var num is equal to 2, and we can run this now. Okay, now we get some output. It says this third line here, number is not equal to 3. Okay, so we are running some code then. And let's come down. Now you may be wondering, we've got this statement here. We set num to 2, and we've got this line here, else if num is smaller than 3. And if number is smaller than 3, we should have seen trace number is less than 3. However, we didn't see that statement because this isn't an else if block. If it was just an if block, then we would see that statement. But this else if block is linked to this if block. So it's either this one is true, this one will get executed, or this one will get executed, not both. If we change that to an if statement, you should see both lots of output now. Okay, so we've got number is not equal to 3, which is true because we set it to 2, and we've also got number is less than 3. Let's just change that back to a else if. So run this code and just make sure you follow how these different if statements and conditions work. Now I'm going to change this greater than. Actually, first thing, I'll set this num back to 3 rather than 2. And I'll scroll down now. Okay, so I'm going to change this one rather than greater than 3. I'll change it to greater than or equal to 3. Okay, so that's what that means. The greater than or equal to. So I've got a single equal sign there. Now save that and run it. Now, because num is set to 3, it is equal to 3. It's not greater than 3, but it is equal to 3. So it's only either or. So number has to either be greater than 3 or equal to 3. So let's just run that. Okay, we get our output. Number is greater than 3. Well, it isn't actually. That's just what I've got in my trace statement there. We could say it again as number is greater than or equal to 3. That would be more accurate in this occasion. Okay, so yeah, just be aware that you've got greater than or equal to. Similarly, you've got smaller than or equal to. So you can do that as well. Okay, I'll just remove these. Now, our final thing we're looking at in terms of selection are compound operators. And what they mean is basically you can have two if conditions. So we can see here we've got if number is greater than 2, and this double ampersand, that means and, logical and. So if number is greater than 2 and number is smaller than 4, then we're going to trace this out. And because we've set num to 3, then this statement will run. And we can see that already down here. Num is greater than 2 and num is less than 4. Now this second one, so that was the logical and. Now you can join as many conditions as you want. So I could say and, number is not equal to 5. Okay, and that would be true as well. So you can have as many conditions chained together using these and symbols as you want. Now the final one, the final compound operator, is the logical or. So that is to what they call pipes. Okay, so just above your enter key on most keyboards, you'll see the pipe symbol. And so you just put two of those together. So that means that's a logical OR. So it's saying that if number is smaller than 3, or number is greater than 3. Okay, so if we change num back to 2, we should see the output there, because 2 is less than 3. And because it's an OR statement, it's a logical OR condition, we only care about one of these. This one, the logical AND, both of these have to be true. But with the logical OR, only one of them needs to be true. So you could have numbers less than 3 or greater than 3. Doesn't have to be both. Well, you can't have numbers that are both less than and greater than 3. Okay, so let's just run that. I've changed num to 2, and I'll run that one. Okay, so we see the output. Num is less than 3 or num is greater than 3. So one or the other. That concludes our lesson on advanced selection.